So can you buy a rental property and then buy another and another and another and another and keep going and keep using the same money that you used for that first property? Just recycle your money over and over again. So you would take the money that you made, that you have, the money that you put just from one deal, and you just leverage it in such a way that you'd end up with 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 rental properties that are all cash positive every month, just recycling that same money over and over again. Is that really possible? Well, today you're going to learn the answer to that question and a lot more. Awesome mail here, BRRRR.com. This is the number one YouTube channel for Indiana real estate, where we're also building the world's largest group of special needs business owners and real estate investors and all other kinds of badass stuff. Go to BRRRR.com to learn more. But today, you and I, right now, we're going to talk about a very old strategy that some have more recently called the BRRRR strategy. It's an acronym that stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. A lot of people have asked about this, so today I'm going to cover this with you. I'm going to go over all sorts of different facets of this. You're going to learn everything you need to know about this, and you're going to be far ahead of almost everybody in real estate. Here is just a taste of some of the stuff we're going to go over. We're going to go over the 5 people that you absolutely need to have on your team if you want to do these deals passively. I'm also going to go over the biggest mistakes that investors make when they do this. You'll also see the 10 different ways to make money with the BRRRR strategy. Over the years, we've done this so many times that people on our team have developed and invented a whole bunch of ways of making money with this that you really want to know about. I'm going to go over that at the end, the 10 different ways to make money doing this. I'm also going to cover the single surest way to tell if somebody's a Nazi or not. It's like so obvious. How can you not see? Don't throw that. Okay. I'm going to go over that and a whole lot more. So that's all in today's class. By the time you're done here, you're going to know more about the BRRRR strategy and more about passive investing and more about real estate and about how to invest wisely and smart team building than at least 90% of people in real estate. Okay, so let's get started. The BRRRR strategy. Okay, so here's an example of a deal. We're just going to go over some example numbers. Remember, this is an acronym, so let's go over every letter, each letter at a time. First, we have the B, the only B here. The B is buy. So let's say you buy a property for $25,000. This is a fixer-upper that needs work. It's pretty basic and simple, right? It costs 25 grand, you pay 25 grand. That's the B. Now, the first R is the rehab. So let's say it costs another $25,000 to fix it up. Now, remember from our closing cost class, there are 3 main categories of costs whenever you're rehabbing a property. You have the buying cost, the holding cost, and the selling cost. The holding costs include stuff like the rehab, the interest payments, other monthly payments, the utilities, days on market, all that stuff. And then the selling/listing cost is the cost of when you sell. So you have the cost of buying, the cost of holding, and the cost of selling. You add those up and you get the 25 grand in this case. That's what we call our rehab cost. So now we have the B and the R. We have the buy and the rehab. And in this case, it's a total of $50,000 for you to buy and fix up and put on the market. This number is called our all-in amount. This is the total amount of money that you need. So the B and R is $50,000, the buy and the rehab. Now for that $50,000, we'll say that you're putting 20% down, which means that you're coming up with $10,000 to do this deal. That's an important thing to remember. So you buy it for 25, you put 25 into it, your all-in amount is 50,000, and you put 10% down, or you put 20% down, which is $10,000. Now the next R is for rent. We'll say that after putting the $50,000 in the property, it's worth, let's say, $80,000, and it rents for $800 a month, which makes it a 1% property. It rents for 1% of the value. Its value is $80,000 and it rents for 1% or $800 a month. So now you rent the property out for $800 a month. That's the second R, the rent. The next R is refinance. So now we're going to say that you're going to go to a bank and you're going to refinance. And anytime you do this, the average is going to be about 80% of the appraised value of the property. So in this case, the property appraised for $80,000, you refinance it for 80% of that. That is, if you've taken the math class, you know this, $64,000. Look at that. That's actually a $64,000 question. How cool is that? So you'd be able to walk away with $64,000, right? So if you had that $50,000 that you put into the property, you can pay that off and you'd walk away with 14 grand. This is called your cash out. Now keep in mind that $64,000 loan, it is a loan, so it comes with a payment. In this case, we'll say that payment's, let's say, $500. So you're paying $500 a month for that 64 grand. Now remember, you rented it for $800 a month, right? So you rent it for $800, your payment's $500. That means you're making $300 a month, right? Right? That's how it should work? No, not exactly. We're going to talk about that in a second. But first, let's go over that last R, which is repeat. So now we've got $14,000, right? Now I'm not including the closing costs on that. This is a perfect example. So it might not be 14 grand, but it's roughly 14 grand, about 10 or 14 grand that you have. So now you take that money and you do the exact same thing again. You recycle your money. Now there are things to consider. How many times can you do this? How many times will the bank let you do this? This is why you need good people on your team that keep your bank aware of everything that's going on. And maybe you use an LLC and other protection. There's other things that you're going to need to be aware of. But for right now, just understand the basics, the concept. You're refinancing, taking that cash out and then repeating it, because remember, you only needed 10 grand to do this deal and now you've got 14 grand. So you could do the same thing again and end up with more money and then do the same thing again and again and again. You see what I'm saying? Now Anna's made a whole bunch of videos, and right now she's making videos basically almost every few days on real life examples of these deals. So you can see real life examples of exactly how the BRRRR method is working. This is nothing new. People act like it's something new and amazing. It really isn't anything new. That's the basic concept, the skeletal framework of it. And now that you know how it works, here's the BRRRR BRRRR method or the BRRRR strategy in one sentence. You buy a property at such a price that after closing, fix-up, and holding costs, you can refinance it at roughly 80% of the value and get enough leftover cash to do the next deal while also renting to a tenant that will pay for the new mortgage that you just got. I'll say that again. Okay, so you go out, you buy a property at such a price that after closing, fix-up, and holding costs, you can refinance it at roughly 80% of the value and get enough leftover cash to do the next deal while also renting to a tenant that will pay for that new mortgage that you just got. Make sense? Okay, so that's the BRRRR strategy. That's the BRRRR. That's how it all works. Now let's go over the 10 things that you need to know about this and about real estate investing in general. Number one, keep in mind that I'm using nice round numbers just for this example. Refer to our other videos and examples in our books, all the other different things that Anna's done, our team has done. You can see real life deals and breakdowns and real life examples where there's real actual numbers, but it's all based on this concept. This video is just so you understand the concept, then elsewhere you'll see real world applications of these concepts. But that's why I'm using nice big round numbers. And why we're using numbers like 80% and $100,000, $50,000 houses where that may not be the case where you are. The numbers might be different, but it's a concept that's important. That's number one. Number two, keep in mind that this is not a strategy I suggest for an active investor. If you're somebody who's learning to write copy or, learning to write copy, and you're learning to, run dialogue and screening sellers and stuff like that, if you're building an active business and trying to build a model to 10 to 30 grand a month or whatever, this is not for you. You can build your real estate business or any business without ever using any of your money or credit or ever talking about getting a loan or talking to a bank or doing any of that stuff. This is not something for an active investor to do. Everything I'm talking about is what we do with passive investors, people who just want mailbox money. They just want to do what we call trading checks. They just write a check for everything and then they get a bigger check in return without ever leaving their house or even having to see the properties or even go to the States or, they can be out of state, out of the country, anywhere, and it's all passive investing. So if you're going to do total, real passive investing, that means you're just writing a check for everything. That's who this class is. That's who's going to be doing the BRRRR strategy the way that I recommend. Number three, you should only do this if you have good primary income. I know people don't talk about this, but if you need income right now, if you need money now, this is not what you should do. And that's partly because you'll have to come out of pocket every month for the mortgage payment. This is something nobody talks about, all right? So check this out. Here's what I mean. In general, you should use what's called the 50% rule, which means that on average, if you talk to a bank, any bank, they'll tell you that on average, for the first 3 to 5 years of a rental property, 50% of that income will go to your pocket. The rest of it will be eaten up by something. 50% of the rent's going to get eaten up by repairs, updates, vacancies, other standard stuff, or something unforeseen. 50% of that money for the first 3 to 5 years at least, sometimes for the first 5 to 7 years, is gone. My uncle used to say, don't invest in real estate if you need to make money in 10 years. That's not true, but you get the idea. So in the example above, when you rented the property for $800 a month and your payment was $500, you might think, oh, I'm making $300 a month. But after you apply the 50% rule, that $800 a month turns into $400 a month. So you actually have a negative $100 a month. And being cash negative like that by such a small amount may not seem like a big deal, but when you have 10, 20, or 30 properties, they can add up really quickly. And that's how your business gets out of shape. That's how things just get nasty and flabby and all out of shape. How out of shape is she? When she laid on a beach, people try to push her back in the water. How fat was she? She takes a shower, her feet don't get wet. Look, I'm not saying she's fat, but when she sits around the house, she sits around the house. Anyway, don't let that happen. That's the worst case scenario. Don't let your business get out of shape. Don't let things get out of control. This is what happens when people don't focus. They don't get things done correctly. This is why you need to have the income to absorb that or know going into it that it's going to take a while for these to cash out and be cash positive. One way to do that is to not pull out the full amount, get a lower payment. And there's other things you can do that we'll talk about later to mitigate that. Number 4, deal with cash negative properties by working with 2% houses. That's one way to deal with this. Another way to look at this is that you can look at cash positive properties like 2% properties. Remember, a 2% house is a house that rents for 2% of the value or the purchase price. So earlier we talked about an $80,000 house, right, that rented for 1%, $800, but if it was a 2% house, it would rent for $1,600 a month. Now that's unlikely. Usually the price range is going to be different. A $40,000 house, for example, that rents for $800 a month is more likely. That's a 2% house. $800 is 2% of the $40,000 value. You'll only find 2% houses in a few places in America, and the indie market is one of those very few, very special areas, so you're lucky on that. This is the right market to find houses that are 2%. Typically, these properties are going to be at $40,000 and below because it's unlikely that you're going to find a property for $50,000 or $60,000 that rents for $1,000 or $1,200 a month. So just know that for 2% properties, you'll normally be at $40,000 and or below, and sometimes lenders don't like to be in those markets. But it's just something for you to know. A 2% property is something you should know and it's something you have a way to combat. It's like a way to combat negative cash situation. So 2% properties can be, when done correctly, they're brilliant. Number 5, you basically have two options when you're doing this BRRRR strategy. You can either use your own cash, you can get a loan. The loan is usually going to be a hard money loan, an HML, or a private money loan, PML, because banks won't loan on properties like this. If you use cash, you won't be paying as much in closing costs because you don't have to pay the money at closing or for the payments every month. But either way, whether you borrow money or you're using your own cash, when you refinance, your goal is to get your all-in money back and then some. You want your entire all-in amount, but then enough cash out to do the next deal. Number 6, in many cases, it may make sense just to flip the house. So you should only buy and hold if these are properties in areas that you want to be involved in for several years. I learned how to write copy. I was trained by the best copywriter alive, and he said that the greatest marketing lesson, the best marketing lesson he ever learned was from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. There's a scene where all these people are chasing him, and they're trying to kill him, and he comes across this giant guy with a big sword, and he starts swinging it all around. Now, in the original script, Harrison Ford was supposed to get in this big epic fight with this guy, but on that day he happened to be sick, so they had to improvise. So this guy does all these fancy and intimidating movements, and Indiana Jones just kind of like, very casually pulls out his gun and just shoots him, kills him, and just walks away. And it's turned into this kind of like epic scene from the movie, but it wasn't supposed to be. It was supposed to be this big fight, but it ends up being this really short fight. But the lesson there is to always focus on what works and what solves the problem immediately. Don't be the one that brings a knife to a gunfight. Bring the gun to the knife fight. Bring a rocket launcher to the knife fight, right? That's how you want to overwhelm your problems. Stick with what works and what solves the problem. So why go through the whole BRRRR strategy and going through all this mess when just a simple flip will do the trick? That's why we sit down with every investor we work with. We do a financial plan. We kind of look at do a diagnostic of where you're at and see what makes the most sense. And often it makes sense initially just to do a few flips instead of going through this whole process. But just keep in mind that we want to focus on what works and what gets the job done, right? Okay, number 7, you really need to build a dream team of ninjas. And here's what that looks like. Here are the 5 people that you need to pull this off correctly. It could be 4, but just the 5 categories of people. Number 1 is your agent, the realtor. This is super important. Number 2 is the rehab crew and contractors, which your agent can help with. Number 3 is the lender, and number 4 is the property manager. Now that's basically it. The 5th person is a team leader, but it can be one of these people. But this is the person who's overseeing all of this with you. And if you don't have this going on, man, it's going to screw everything up because it's going to be you. And it's not, that income is not going to be very passive at all. It's going to be you answering the phone. It's going to be you hoping people get back to you. It's going to be you, nagging people and trying to get things done. The most important thing in any of these deals is time. You got to get things done quickly and on deadlines. You need someone that can make that happen. So your dream team, again, I will go over this again. This is really important you get this right. You need the agent, the rehab crew and contractors, the lender, the property manager, and or the team leader. One of those people can be the team leader. Maybe it's somebody else, but you need those people in place. You want to pick people that operate with surgical, Terminator precision. I don't want you to just thug life it and guess and pick some random people. That's not going to help you. The team that you have will determine everything. Choose wisely. It's like that scene in Indiana Jones when the guy drinks from the wrong, they're going through the grail and he drinks from the wrong grail and his body like withers away and he dies this miserable, painful, awful death. And when it's over, the other guy's just sitting there calmly and he says, he chose poorly, right? That's going to be you. If you pick the wrong person, just one wrong person, your business is going to die just like that. Painful, awful, slow, miserable. And I'm going to be sitting there right behind you, dressed like a knight during the Crusades, adorned with a pale light from the ceiling. And I'm going to say, he chose poorly. No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to see that happen. Don't let that happen. Some people will pick an agent or a contractor, somebody that, it's so obvious. You look at these people, it's like the guy's about as sharp as a beach ball. You know what I mean? The kind of brainiac that puts airbags on a computer in case it crashes. I'm not saying they're dumb, but if you ask them to make ice, they'd ask you for the recipe. My point is choose wisely. You want to get the right people. Lucky for you, I may be able to help with this in a way. I'll get to that later on. But first, is that the second Indiana Jones reference in one class? I hope I'm done with that, but you guys know I like to do things in 3, so no promises. Number 8, let's do a quick rundown and review. These are the 6 terms that you need to know like the back of your paw. By the way, 3-legged dog walks into a saloon during the Old West, tells the bartender, I'm looking for the man who shot my paw. One more. Horse walks into a bar. Bartender says, why the long face? Neutron walks into a bar, asks the bartender how much for a drink. Bartender says, for you, no charge. So remember, when you buy and you rehab a property, you have 3 main categories of cost. I know, I kill myself. What am I going to do? So you have 3 main categories of cost. First is the buying. That includes the research, the cost of private money loans, the hard money loans, closing costs, all that stuff. Then you have the holding repair cost. This is going to be the cost of the money every month, the rehab cost, the days on market, all that stuff. Then third, you have the selling cost. This includes closing costs, how far below the asking price the offer may be, seller concessions or allowances, all that stuff. So if you add all that up, you get your all-in cost, right? We talked about this. The all-in cost is how much those 3 costs, right? The buying and the rehabbing. The rehab includes those 3 areas. Now, if you take the ARV, the after repair value, and then we take 80% of that, we get the refinance amount. That is, remember, that's how much the lender will loan you on the refinance. Then you subtract your all-in from the refinance amount, and that's your cash out. And again, this is a loan. You do have to pay it back, so this really isn't a profit, but it does allow you to do the next deal, and you have a tenant who's helping you now pay that mortgage off. And they're paying that mortgage off with your rent rate. So these terms should be totally clean out. These 6 terms here, the 3 flipping costs, right, that we just talked about, the all-in number, that's number 2. Number 3 is the rent rate. Number Number 4 is the ARV, after repair value. Number 5 is the refinance amount, how much you're going to pull out, and that subtract the all-in number from that, and that is your cash out, right? These 6 terms you should know very, very well. You should know these going into every single deal. It's really important you buy correctly. Okay, number 9. There are 5 ways or 9 ways. We're going to go over 10 ways. Sorry, no, it's a 10 total of 10 ways to make money doing this. So you can do it to make money with the BRRRR strategy here. So you can do it the standard way and you'll make money. Just grow your list of rental properties, having tenants pay down your mortgage. Just do it the obvious way we talked about and do it the slow and steady way, the standard way. That's way number 1. Number 2 is that you do the BRRRR strategy, but you also flip houses in the meantime. So you use the extra money that you're getting from flipping houses on the side or flipping these houses currently. Instead of refinancing, you actually turn around and flip the houses. So you do that and you pay your mortgages down faster. So that's number 2. It's kind of a hybrid of flipping and the BRRRR. Number 3, you can partner with an investor/agent where you bring the money and the profits are split, or you have some sort of partnership like that. We do a lot of these deals. Number 4, you can help others do this, but again, you have to know the market really well. As I explained, a passive investor is usually not going to be doing this, but it is an option that you can have. We have some passive investors that do this, that help other people do this. They get paid and then they can do their deals from the money that they get. Number 5, you can take a package of your homes and sell them as a package for one big upfront payment. If you do this right, you can make a few times as much money as you would if you did individual flips, because you have a package. Anytime you have a package that's managed together, you can charge more just because it is a package and it's managed together. Number 6, you can take a group of properties and sell them on terms. I recently had a client who did this, who got about $1 million up front and a down payment. Number 7, you can take these properties that we talked about, you're picking them up as a group. So you take these properties and you pick a group of them and you sell them off in order to pay the rest off. So maybe you take 60-70% of your inventory and you sell it to pay the rest off, to pay that other 20, 30, 40% off. So now you'd have 15 or 20 properties that are totally paid off, and you did it in a fraction of the time that it would have taken had you gone the normal route. This is where you basically used enough money to buy one property, right? And then you went out and you bought several properties. You bought 20 or 30 properties with the idea that you're going to sell a majority of them, or at least enough of them to pay off, so you have 5 or 10 properties that are paid off, right? It's a very cool strategy. We do this a lot with our clients. We have where you can go out and say, okay, how many properties do you need? I need 15 properties in this price range that are paid off. Okay, well, let's go out and buy 30 or 40 and let's sell off a chunk of them or do enough flips so that we can get that amount in a very condensed time frame. It's very cool. That was number 7. Yeah, that was number 7. Number 8, as you do more of these deals, you'll have tight relationships with private money lenders, and now you can be a hard money lender for other investors. So you can get private money and loan it out as hard money, by the way. It's very, very cool. Number 9, this is one of my favorites, trade. Take your house or a group of houses and trade for partial or full ownership into a target company or another property or a group of properties or maybe an apartment complex. This is one of our coolest, one of my favorite methods here. Build up assets, build up equity, and then take that and trade it for something else that you want that's really big. And finally, number 10, right now, my homie, your homie, Anna is in the middle of doing deals just like this, on top of helping people do real estate flips in the indie market. So we're doing, this whole project of this 90-day challenge we've been doing indie flips in the indie market, making 20 to 30 to 40 to 50 grand on each flip. She's also helping investors, both local and out of state, find perfect properties and the perfect team to carry out this BRRRR strategy remotely while being totally passive. Remember, there are issues like how many deals will a lender let you do, making sure that your all-in amount is at the right, that you have that all-in, that you get the exact right numbers, that you buy at the right price, that you have enough of a spread. It's really important you do this correctly. One wrong deal can gum up the works and screw up the whole thing. So you've got to make sure you know that exactly the right number of properties, that you're building up your equity base, your forever fund. These are really important things to know, because otherwise one refinance, one delay can actually cost you, a whole block of houses. It can, cost you years in your timeline. So you got to do this correctly. You want to have the right amount, so when you refinance or get more than enough to do your next one, you want to make sure the tenant quality demand is year round and sufficient with no lags or problems, that you won't have lags or problems filling vacancies. These things are you only have like this kind of knowledge from these are things you would only know from a real intimate knowledge, like a real intimate knowledge. Like when Indiana Jones asked Sean Connery, Harrison Ford's like, how'd you know she was a Nazi, Dad? And he's like, because she talks in her sleep, right? That level of knowledge only comes from intimacy, being so aware of every nook and cranny in that area. You know your market as well as an escaped prisoner from Alcatraz who now has to show soldiers the way to sneak in. Gentlemen, welcome to the Rock. Yes, that level of intimacy, that's what you need on your team. To do this, you have to have good credit. If you want to be considered to be one of the investors in our slots here, you need to have good credit, and you usually want to have at least $50,000 to $100,000 cash. So if that's you, if you want to be one of the investors in our next slot here, in our next round to do these deals, you want to have good credit, nearly perfect credit. You want to have at least 50 grand cash, either for a down payment or to cover all the cost if you're going to use cash. I'd say at least 50 to 100 grand cash is a good benchmark to use. If that's you and you want us to walk you through this whole process, to hold your hand and getting these deals done, start flipping indie real estate, doing the buy and hold, doing the BRRRR, where we walk you through every step. If you want to apply for a slot to be one of our investors, just let me know. You can email Anna Anna, love@BigRia.com, or give her a call, 317-969-5619. Please text her first because that really is her number, her direct line, 317-969-5619. Again, 317-969-5619. And we can sit down, go over your profile, and see if we've got a slot for you in our next opening here as an investor. And remember, guys, finally remember this: the more you want out of life, the earlier you need to wake up. The LC is always tired while the hero is tapped into endless energy. When you're living your destiny and doing what you're built for, you're unstoppable. Get there, live in that place, be who you're supposed to be. The more you want out of life, the earlier you need to wake up. I love you guys so much. Go to BigRRRR.com. There's all kinds of great stuff there on income extension, social mobility. Much love, you guys. Thank you so much. We'll talk soon. Thanks so much.